And the last poem I'm going to read started as a collaboration. I guess it's worth telling the story quickly. There's a sample that one of my collaborators, Val Gentil, who's a wonderful electronic drummer, she had this little piece with the great Jeffrey Holder. Anybody know Jeffrey Holder? Tell your age. Nobody wants to tell. All right. See the original Dr. Dolittle with Dick Van Dyke, and you'll see Jeffrey Holder. Really, way too much information. Anyways, tall, Chicago black man with a beautiful voice. And he comes, I swear to God it's him, because it's a sort of singular voice. And he says, "It all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa." Very like Afro-Shakespearean diction. And so Val used that sample, and then I kind of did a vocalese based on that. And after that was recorded, I think it's in Mark's zine, you can still find it online. We did a collaboration, but we couldn't get the sample right, so it started as, "It all started as we were brought here as slaves from Africa." And I was like, "Now you're doing my job, Jeffrey." And we could never sample it the way that he originally did it. It was strange. So I decided to do a poem found on Jeffrey Holder's reading of this one line in this piece that Val already did. That, I swear, that's how it happened. It all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa. It all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa. It all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa. It all started when we all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa. It all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa. It all started when we were Africa. It all started with Africa. It all started with Africa. It all started when we were Africa. It all started when we were Africa. It all started when we were brought here as slaves in Africa. It all started when we were brought here as slaves from Africa. It all started when we were brought here as slaves Africa. It all started when we were Africa. It all started when we were Africa. It all started when we. Thank you.